"Yes, Bonnie, in the car." She asked him to turn off the television and come to bed. When he got beneath the covers, she moved closer, nipped his earlobes, played her fingers through the silky sprout of hair on his bony chest. "Guess what I'm not wearing?" she whispered. "Shh," said Max Lamb. "Listen to that rain." Edie Marsh headed to Dade County from Palm Beach, where she'd spent 6 months trying to sleep with a Kennedy. She'd had the plan all worked out, how she'd seduce a young Kennedy and then threaten to run to the cops with a lurid tale of perversion, rape, and torture. She'd hatched the scheme while watching the William Kennedy Smith trial on court TV and noticing the breathless relief with which the famous Klan had received the acquittal. All of them with those fantastic teeth, beaming at the cameras, but wearing an expression that Edie Marsh had seen more than a few times in her 29 action-packed years, the look of those who dodged a bullet. They'd have no stomach for another scandal, not right away. Next time, there'd be a mad stampede for the Kennedy family checkbook in order to make the problem go away. Edie had it all figured out. She cleaned out her boyfriend's bank account and grabbed the Amtrak to West Palm, where she found a cheap duplex apartment. She spent her days sleeping, shoplifting cocktail dresses, and painting her nails. Each night she'd cross the bridge to the rich island, where she assiduously loitered at O Bar and the other trendy clubs. She overtipped bartenders and waitresses with the understanding that they would instantly alert her when a Kennedy, any Kennedy, arrived. In this fashion, she had quickly met 2 Shrivers and a distant Lawford, but to Edie they would have been borderline fucks. She was saving her charms for a direct heir, a pipeline to old Joe Kennedy's mother lode. One of the weekly tabloids had published a diagram of the family tree, which Edie Marsh had taped to the wall of the kitchen next to a Far Side calendar. Right away, Edie had ruled out screwing any Kennedys by marriage. The serious money followed the straightest lines of genealogy, as did the scandal hunters. Statistically, it appeared her best target would be one of Ethel and Bobby's sons, since they'd had so many. Not that Edie wouldn't have crawled nude across broken glass for a whack at John Jr., but the odds of him strolling unescorted into a Palm Beach fern bar were laughable. Besides, Edie Marsh was nothing if not a realist. John Kennedy Jr. had movie star girlfriends, and Edie knew she was no movie star. Pretty, sure. Sexy, in a low-cut Versace, you bet. But John probably wouldn't glance twice. Some of those cousins, though, Bobby's boys, Edie was sure she could do some damage there. Suck 'em cross-eyed, then phone the lawyers. Unfortunately, 6 grueling months of bar-hopping produced only 2 encounters with Kennedys. Neither tried to sleep with Edie. She couldn't believe it. One of the young men even took her on an actual date, but when they returned to her place, he didn't so much as grope her boobs. Just pecked her good night and said thanks for a nice time. The perfect goddamn gentleman, she'd thought. Just my luck. Edie had tried valiantly to change his mind, practically pinned him to the hood of his car, kissed and rubbed and grabbed him. Nothing. Humiliating is what it was. After the young Kennedy departed, Edie Marsh had stalked to the bathroom and studied herself in the mirror. Maybe there was wax in her ears or spinach in her teeth, something gross to put the guy off. But no, she looked fine. Furiously, she peeled off her stolen dress, appraised her figure, and thought, did the little snot think he's too good for this? What a joke, that Kennedy charm. The kid had all the charisma of oatmeal. He'd bored her to death long before the lobster entree arrived. She'd felt like hopping on the tabletop and shrieking at the top of her lungs, "Who gives a shit about illiteracy in South Boston? Tell me about Jackie and the Greek." That dismal evening, it turned out, was Edie's last shot. The summer went dead in Palm Beach, and all the fuckable Kennedys traveled up to Hyannis. Edie was too broke to give chase. The hurricane on the TV radar had given her a new idea. The storm was 800 miles away, churning up the Caribbean, when she phoned a man named Snapper, who was coming off a short hitch for manslaughter. Snapper got his nickname because of a crooked jaw, which had been made that way by a game warden and healed poorly. Edie Marsh arranged to meet him at a sports bar on the beach. Snapper listened to her plan and said it was the nuttiest fucking thing he'd ever heard because A, the hurricane probably won't hit here, and B, somebody could get busted for heavy time. 3 days later, with the storm bearing down on Miami, Snapper called Edie Marsh and said, "What the hell, let's check it out." "I got a guy," Snapper said. "He knows about these things." The guy's name was Avila, and formerly he had worked as a building inspector for metropolitan Dade County. Snapper and Edie met him at a convenience store on Dixie Highway in South Miami. The rain was deceptively light, given the proximity of the hurricane, but the clouds hung ominously low, an eerie yellow gauze. They went in Avila's car, Snapper sitting next to Avila up front, and Edie by herself in the back. They were going to a subdivision called Sugar Palm Hammocks, 164 single-family homes platted sadistically on only 40 acres of land. Without comment, Avila drove slowly through the streets. Many residents were outside, frantically nailing plywood to the windows of their homes. "There's no yards," Snapper remarked. Avila said, "Zero lot lines is what we call it." "How cozy," Edie Marsh said from the back seat. "What we need is a house that'll go to pieces in the storm." Avila nodded confidently. "Take your pick. They're all coming down." "No shit?" "Yeah, honey, no shit." Snapper turned to Edie Marsh and said, "Avila ought to know. He's the one inspected the damn things." "Perfect," said Edie. She rolled down the window. "Then let's find something nice." On instructions from the authorities, tourists by the thousands were bailing out of the Florida Keys. Traffic on northbound US 1 was a wretched crawl, winking brake lights as far as the eye could see. Jack Fleming and Weebo Drake had run out of beer at Big Pine. Now they were stuck behind a Greyhound bus halfway across the 7-mile bridge. The bus had stalled with transmission trouble. Jack Fleming and Weebo Drake got out of the car, Jack's father's car, and started throwing empty Coors cans off the bridge. The two young men were still slightly trashed from a night at the Turtle Crawls in Key West, where the idea of getting stranded in a Force 4 hurricane had sounded downright adventurous, a nifty yarn to tell the guys back at the Kappa Alpha house. The problem was, Jack and Weebo had awakened to find themselves out of money as well as beer, with Jack's father expecting his almost new Lexus to be returned, well, yesterday. So here they were, stuck on one of the longest bridges in the world, with a monster tropical cyclone only a few hours away. The wind hummed across the Atlantic at a pitch that Jack Fleming and Weebo Drake had never heard before. It rocked them on their heels when they got out of the car. Weebo lobbed an empty Coors can toward the concrete rail, but the wind whipped it back hard like a line drive. Naturally, it then became a contest to see who had the best arm. In high school, Jack Fleming had been a star pitcher, mainly sidearm, so his throws were not as disturbed by the gusts as those of Weebo Drake, who had merely played backup quarterback for the junior varsity. Jack was leading 8 beer cans to 6 off the bridge when a hand, an enormous brown hand,